All right, I think it's time to get started here since everyone is on time. Hello and welcome to WeWork Lab Sales Academy, the Americas edition. This is our final session. I can't believe how time flies, and we would love to hear your opinion on the program. I just dropped a link to a quick survey in the chat. We'd really appreciate your help and input as we think about future programming that we want to put on for our WeWork Labs community. And now let's come to today's topic, building your personal brand for sales success. And we couldn't ask for a better speaker on this topic than Preeti Pinch. A self-described introverted seller, Preeti has made that her advantage and inspired many other introverts to do the same. One of her specialties has been to utilize her marketing background and out-of-the-box strategies to create a personal brand that has attracted dream sales roles, dream clients, and has helped her sustain a successful 10-year sales career. She was voted by clients and colleagues as one of Sales Hacker's top 50 sales champions account executive, 2 years in a row, Girls Club's top sales women to watch, and has built the #1 ranked seller portfolio on Bravado. As usual, we'll be doing a Q&A at the end of the session, so please share any questions that might come up at any time through the Q&A function that you can find at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, Preeti. Take it away.
Okay, perfect. Stephanie, thank you so much. And good morning, everybody. I'm not sure where everyone else is in the world, but I am in Toronto here in Canada. So just kind of finishing up my morning coffee here, but I'm really, really excited to be joining everybody and having this great conversation about personal branding. Because I have a little bit of a unique story, and I know folks on the call are perhaps at different stages or in different roles. Perhaps you're not in a customer facing kind of sales role, but I think you can definitely still really benefit from some of the content, and hopefully will benefit from some of the content that I'm going to share. Really the whole idea is, creating your own personal brand and, really leveraging this brand and opening these amazing doors that perhaps you didn't even know that was possible, because that was kind of what happened to me. So that being said, what I'm going to do is let me just fire up my screen share here. And let me see if you can see my screen. I'm going to ask that really annoying question that everyone asks of can you see my screen? Even though we've been on Zoom for so long.
Yes.
But that being said, let me know if you can see
my screen.
I see your screen. Okay, awesome. Perfect.
I'm ready to answer that question every single time.
Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. I appreciate that support. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to walk through a couple of slides, but I'm also going to take you into some real life examples, because I feel like that's where I learned best, and that's where my light bulbs kind of have gone off when I've gone through different webinars or training sessions. So hopefully that's the same case for you. Just a little bit of virtual housekeeping before we begin. So you can definitely use the Q&A functionality, ask questions. Just make sure that you do change your option here from attendees to all panelists and attendees as well. So, and I think Stephanie will be watching for any questions, and then we'll make sure that we have some time at the end as well. I'm just going to make sure my watch here, so I'm able to make sure I'm on time, and save about 10 or so, 15 minutes towards the end to answer any questions that might come up. Stephanie, I think, confirmed that this webinar will be recorded and available for the WeWork Labs members in your portal. And lastly, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love networking. I love meeting new people and new connections. So I welcome all connections. And if you're wanting to connect, feel free to pop over on LinkedIn and send me a quick little invite right now, or even afterwards. And I would love to stay in touch and connected. Okay, so a little bit of an agenda. Just a really quick intro, because I know for some folks, perhaps our first time kind of connecting. So I want to give a quick little intro in terms of who I am, where I came from, kind of my journey experience over the last couple of years. And then when it comes to personal branding, a lot of people are yeah, I know it's something I should be doing, but I just haven't gotten around to doing it. So hopefully, I'm hoping for folks that are kind of in that bucket, that today is the day that kind of changes for you, where you're okay, I really need to set out time and schedule and actually, make this happen. So hopefully that's one kind of takeaway, from today's session here. We'll also kind of dive into how do you actually define, your brand. The neat thing with that is that you can't go wrong. So that's a win right there. And then I'm going to share with you, there's so much that we can cover, but I know we have only an hour together today. So I just want to share some really quick wins of what you can do honestly after even this webinar, or if you block out some time in your calendar for this week or maybe on the weekend to just get some quick wins in, so you kind of start that momentum to actually building your brand. With some quick start ideas as well. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A. So feel free to pop in any questions at all. But really kind of just for a quick intro, my name is Preeti. As Stephanie mentioned, my little bit of an intro. I basically actually went to school and majored in marketing. So I thought I was going to be a marketer. The option of having a sales career or being in a sales role honestly wasn't even on my radar. I thought in my mind that you had to be very, first of all, I didn't even know it was a career option. And then secondly, in my mind, it was for people who were, very loud and, extroverts, good talkers, that kind of alpha aggressive kind of competitive personality. And that just didn't resonate with like who I was. I'm 100% an introvert. I am very passionate about certain topics. I can talk a lot about them, but who I am as a person, I definitely am a little bit more quieter. I'm an introvert. I don't have this big, loud personality. But sure enough, of course, out of my first role out of school, I end up working with someone who was in sales, and she's one that kind of planted the seed. Her name was Jennifer, and she planted the seed of like, hey, you should really try, sales. And I was like, absolutely not, Jennifer. But that seed was planted. And from there, I actually ended up being offered a sales role. And I figured, what's the worst that can happen? Like, let me try this out. I do love challenges. And, it's been about 10 years in sales now. I've been in like software sales for about 7 years now. And honestly, I did not even though I have that marketing background, I did not even think about brand building or what was my personal brand, or put any effort or work into, building a personal brand. It wasn't until about 2018 where that kind of light bulb went off for me. And I was like, hey, maybe this is something I should like actually focus on doing. So hopefully you don't wait that long. But basically a little bit about me in terms of like some of my sales mantras and kind of what have been like my North Stars or guidance when I've kind of figured out like my own personal brand and like the things that are true to me and my values. And some of them are over there, but I really do love being a connector and just, helping people and problem solving and, building good karma along the way, which has been really awesome. So from there, what's also happened, and I wanted to dive a little bit more into this about like some of the doors that can be opened by actually working and having a personal brand and being intentional about it, is I had some amazing things happen to me, which honestly, if you would ask me, back in 2017, 18, when I was kind of thinking about like, oh, like what's this branding thing? Like maybe I should think about this. I would have never imagined that this would have happened. And it's been like so humbling and a really, really awesome experience. And just on a quick personal note, so I'm a mom. I have a little baby boy named Logan. He's 2 years old. Like I mentioned, home for me is Toronto, and I'm definitely a dog person. I'm trying to get better at golf. It is really, really fun. And I just love learning. I honestly like will soak in anything and everything when it comes to learning and just how to, figure out how to, have that 1%, increase and improvement every single day, whether it's like in my personal or professional life. Okay, that's a lot about me, but I want to give you a little bit of background on the story, because a lot of times what happens is when you see somebody who has like a great brand, or they've hit certain milestones in their career, or have had certain successes, you kind of think like, oh my God, like they must have like started off there. And this was 100% not the case for me. So I was actually, as I was getting ready for today's presentation, I actually went through and found this picture, which is from my desk when I first started my first sales role at a software company. And it was just really interesting because I was at my desk here and, making phone calls, cold calls, cold emails, and I was trying to connect with CFOs and VPs of finance. And I was doing okay, but I was really thinking about how do I be more efficient with my time and how do I connect with these people? You know, they're CFOs and they're VPs and, you know, they have years of experience and insight and knowledge. And I'm just starting off my career selling into them. And I really don't have any credibility or trust when it comes to that. So I knew that was one element that I needed to work on sitting at my desk, where I was like, I have to have an edge. I have to stand out, because if you think about it, you know, with your audience, if you are in a sales role or you're selling into any kind of different teams, you know, these individuals and your buyers are bombarded by all this noise. And especially when it comes to different vendors and different sellers trying to contact them, right? So the whole idea, light bulb moment for me was, how do I stand out and how do I be memorable? And how do I build trust with these people, right? Because sales is all about trust. So how do we actually do that? So this is when I realized, okay, trust, credibility, and I have to, you know, capture the interest of my audience. But I also knew, you know, as I was trying to start to do research, and if you Google, like, how do I build my personal brand in sales on Google, you'll have a ton of different articles and different insights. And I also kind of realized, as much as like those things, they have some great points there, but you also got to find what is your voice and your style too, and definitely make sure that you stay true to that. So at that time, I didn't know it, but I started doing a couple of things. And when I look back in hindsight in 2020, you know, it really allowed me to kind of set and build my own personal brand, which has, you know, resulted, in some like amazing, amazing wins. So if you're kind of sitting there and you're like, okay, that sounds great. Yeah, personal brand, got it. You know, yep, it's important. I know I should be doing this. Hopefully today, like I said, I convince you to actually, you know, put the effort and time into it. So why you should actually do this. Number one, the doors that it will open, and the amazing experiences and the people that you will meet and the access that you will get. So I can't sit here and tell you for sure, like, hey, if you do this with your brand, it's going to result in, you know, being listed as, you know, a top 20 thought leader, you know, in your industry or space, or get you that meeting with your dream client. But you know, that potential is definitely there. So you don't know what doors it's going to open, but I can tell you that it's going to be 100% all positive. And I think almost to the point that you can't even imagine, you know, how things can change and how quickly they can change too, when you actually put the time and effort to work on your personal brand. So again, just for my story, I mean, in 100 years, if you'd asked me if this was even possible for you, Preeti, I would have not. I would have laughed at you and been like, absolutely not. But I got some really amazing wins. So I got listed as one of the top 50 sales AEs for 2 years in a row. And again, when I look back on this and kind of think about like, how did this actually come to be? It all comes back to being intentional with like branding, connection, and having an actual brand or certain values that I followed that just made it very easy and seamless. From there, more amazing doors opened. I was asked to speak on panels. Again, being an introvert, this, you know, freaked me out. And my initial reaction was absolutely not. But I also know that, again, the more I said yes, the more doors would open for me too. So I said yes. And from there, met some great people. I was on, you know, the panel with like CMOs and VPs. And, you know, it was just an amazing, amazing experience. And then from there, this momentum started to grow, right? So asked to be on more webinars and podcasts and communicate and connect with different communities as well. So you would be very, very surprised at how quickly this can happen for you as well. And of course, you know, being able to connect, but also just feeling really good about being able to give back to, you know, your community as well, and making some great connections. So Ali and I connected in 2019. We still chat all the time. She's an amazing, you know, sales thought leader as well. And, you know, again, this wouldn't have happened without that personal brand, which kind of then led to all these great opportunities and kind of this snowball effect. And for any people who, for example, perhaps aren't in a sales role, you know, even amazing things like having dream job offers literally land in your inbox which, I mean, what more could you ask for? So I had Mark, who's a VP here, reach out to me. And honestly, the reason that I know he reached out to me was the fact that I had worked on having, a really powerful and very intentional profile. And again, that is obviously very much connected, with your brand. So, even if you're looking for that dream job, I would say 100% work on your brand, because then you will be able to pull in great opportunities and the kind of people that you want to connect with, as opposed to kind of pushing out, your messaging. But yeah, definitely some life-changing opportunities that it could land your way as well. Okay, so hopefully that little tidbit has hopefully inspired you to actually like work on your personal brand. So how do we actually get started? So the first thing, and again, I actually didn't do any of this because I was, doing all these things kind of non-intentionally. And when I actually look back now to reflect on what I actually did and what worked and what didn't, this is exactly where I would start if I was going back to the start in 2018. So number one, actually define your brand, right? So for some folks, you might be very self-aware and know yourself, and that is fantastic. For other folks, this is still a great exercise to do, is actually ask people, right? Typically sometimes we are the most critical critics of ourselves and the harshest. So ask your colleagues, ask friends and family, just ask them, like, what would they say are your top 3 best qualities? And actually get them to like write in an email or send it to you, so you can actually read that. Even your clients. So if you are interacting with people, in a client-facing role, go ahead and ask your clients, say, hey, I'm kind of doing a little bit of an exercise. I'm just like really curious, like, how would you describe working with me versus any other salesperson that you've actually worked with? And you're probably going to be blown away by some of the responses. I know for me, it was like, when I actually did this exercise or talked to some of my clients, it was just the fact that, hey, Preeti, you were always really responsive. And even when you couldn't find an answer, you made sure to go hunt down the answer. And I love that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So maybe that's now part of my brand and the way that I want to present myself to clients or to my network, and how I actually make those definitions. So that's a great exercise to do. And then also think about yourself. So what do you actually want to be associated with? What kind of traits or strengths or characteristics do you want to be remembered for as well? So for me, one of the things that I, reflected on when I thought about this, I was like, you know what? I want good karma sales. Sales unfortunately gets a really bad rep for, just for being kind of pushy and aggressive. We've probably all heard like horror stories of, someone working with someone in sales and being sold a product or a tool or a service that they actually really didn't need, or it was described one way and that was very different, once a contract, for example, was signed. So, having heard about them and having seen certain clients share that experience with me, I was like, okay, for me, it's really, really important to be genuine, true, honest, transparent, and, build this good sales karma. So think about that as well. And then, from there, just like I did in my little intro slide there, but really start thinking about like, and distill some of the common themes that you're hearing from your colleagues' feedback, from client feedbacks, from, what you actually want to be associated or remembered for, and think about like your 3 or 4 kind of like North Stars or like your own sale mantras, which would be helpful. And also the story, right? Like, what is the story that you want to share with the world? So for example, with me, it was like these sales mantras. And when I kind of distilled down like the experience people had working with me or from my colleagues, where it kept coming hearing over and over again, it kind of distilled down to here. So think about your own as well and actually go through this exercise, because it's really, really helpful and really, really insightful. So we'll kind of start there in terms of like your actual first step is just defining, what's important to you, what do you want to be known for, what is the story that you want to tell the world about who you are. Okay, cool. Just going to do a quick little time check here. So this is the fun part. So we actually get to build now, which is going to be awesome. And I'm basically going to share, there's so many ways you can do this, but I'm going to share with you the top 2 most powerful tools that again, as I kind of reflected on this, and they continue to be the most efficient and effective tools. So I want to make sure that you leverage them too. And hopefully some of these little shortcuts and hacks allow you to drive value out of them sooner versus later. Okay, so we're thinking about this whole pull versus push, right? When it comes to your brand as well. We want to pull in the right people. We want to attract individuals who resonate with who you are, your brand, your story, your experience. Definitely it helps in a sales perspective to be able to also pull in your ideal clients that you want to work with as well, versus having like this push strategy. So with a personal brand, that's where the beauty of this strategy is that it really is effective in the pull versus the push. So we're going to start off with our, of course, number one favorite tool, which is LinkedIn. So I'm going to make the assumption here that most folks, hopefully all of you, have a LinkedIn profile. But let's actually step it up a notch. And perhaps a lot of you might be super active on LinkedIn, which is awesome. For many of you, and it's totally okay, perhaps you haven't logged in a while or haven't really done much to your profile. So we're going to start there with your profile. So this is so powerful and so overlooked. So I always start with the basics, and 100% it is your profile. So really in a sales kind of role, think of it as like your 24/7 like sales page. It's always on, it's always available. And whether it is for, connecting with your dream clients, whether it's trying to find your dream job, it doesn't matter what your objective is, but 100% put the time and effort into LinkedIn. It will pay off. I can guarantee that. First thing, very simple, profile picture. Make sure it's a clear picture, that you're smiling, it's friendly. I've seen, I've browsed and probably seen thousands of profiles at this point for different kind of objectives. And you'd be surprised at how many profile pictures I've seen where people are cropped out of a picture, or it's just like a really not attractive in the sense of like they're not smiling. It's not like a warm, engaging. Again, we want to pull people in, not push them away, right? Something as simple as just update your profile picture, make sure you're smiling, make sure you look friendly in that picture. Number two, we're going to create a personalized banner. So Canva is a great tool that you can use. It is free. And with that, it actually will allow you to have templates of LinkedIn profiles, the actual banner, and then you can personalize those banners with different colors. You can have different quotes. You can include different numbers. So for example, like if you're in sales or like marketing, if you want to have, different milestones or numbers that you've hit in your career, you can definitely include that. You can include like logos of like, obviously your own company or clients that you've worked with, and also any kind of CTA. So the whole idea with the banner, and again, people don't utilize the space, but it's such prime real estate. When people actually land on your profile, that's like the first thing that kind of pops out, right? It's the profile picture and it's the banner. So a lot of people don't leverage this space. So make sure that when you do update this banner, what we want to do is we want to make people stop scrolling and actually read or engage, or just have something that's different that makes them stop. And again, we're trying to make your profile memorable and engaging. So I'm just going to stop right here. I'm actually going to just dive right into like my profile, just to give you a quick little idea. This is the way that I kind of did it. So this is my profile. I used Canva again, and like literally took 2 seconds, used the branding and the color of my company. And then I have a little bit of a call to action. So what I'm trying to do is pull in people and connect with people who are interested in SaaS and software technology, sales and marketing, and also personal development too, right? But just spoken in a little bit of a different way. So you can do this in, a variety of different ways. I've had people, I think people put like their website there, or again, like numbers and like logos as well. You can get quite creative. Canva is a great place to start. Really easy fix. But that's like definitely one of the quick things that you can do and get that quick win in there. Okay, tell your story in the summary. Again, this is like such a missed opportunity on LinkedIn. So many people don't use the space. They literally leave it blank, or they put in information about their company, right? Which is not appealing. Because if I wanted to learn about your company, I could just go to the company page, right? But I want to learn about you. So like, what is your story? And a little bit of a pro tip here is that you want your first 2 sentences to really be interesting, be a little bit like, huh, like what are they talking about? And you want a person landing on your profile to hit that see more button. So what I mean by that is if I go back on my profile over here, what we'll see, if I kind of go down, is I have this little about section, and you can see my first 2 lines. I'm telling a little bit of a story. Hope it's a little bit of a hook where people are like, I want to see more, right? And then you dive into telling your story. So this is basically my story of like how I got into sales, some of my personal mantras as well, building some credibility here just really quickly with some of my wins, and different topics that I'm passionate about and have spoken about. And then you can also add like a little bit of a personal note as well. So again, with LinkedIn, like there is that professional connection, but also we're all humans, right? So you want to have that, one-to-one connection as well. And a little bit of a call to action to end off. So what do you want people to do? Do you want them to connect with you? Do you want them to, visit a website? Do you want them to download something, a free guide that you're offering, whatever the case is, have a little bit of a call to action. I kept mine very, very simple, with just like a very soft, let's connect. Okay. Another thing I would recommend to do, I'm just going to actually keep this. Oh, you know what? Let me just go view. There we go. I'm just going to be flipping between screens. I figure this might be a little bit easier. Keep your work sections short. And if you do put anything in there, highlight your wins, like 2 or 3 wins. The reason I say this is because as you have people scrolling, we obviously want them to, see credibility. But what we want them to actually do, and I feel like where like the sweet spot is we want them to get down to the recommendation section as quickly as possible. So sometimes if we have profiles where like there's like just a ton of information within the work section, it just like prolongs the scrolling, right? So we want to make it short, sweet. You can highlight a couple of wins if you want. And then from there, we want people to actually get to the recommendation section, because this is so powerful in building and social proof. Right. So a couple things that you should definitely do here is with your LinkedIn profile, you only have your top 2 that pop up over here. So, and obviously with show more, the more you have, the better, right? But what you also want to do is make sure your top 2 are updated, right? So you don't want to see a recommendation from like 2015 or just one. Ensure that you actually do ask consistently for recommendations from clients, from colleagues. If you are asking from clients for recommendations, what you can do over here, very simple, just again, ask them to describe why they enjoyed working with you, right? And preface it with like, hey, it does not be a paragraph, like literally 2 or 3 lines is very powerful. And again, asking colleagues, managers, directors that you've worked with or VPs, ask them to describe your top 2 traits, right? Again, very simple, very easy, but get those 2 in, because that will make a huge difference in your profile. I cannot tell you how many people I know who are fantastic at sales, who are fantastic in their role, and they have like this wonderful mission. And when I go on their LinkedIn profile, none of that is captured or reflected. And a huge miss here is the recommendation section. So make sure you actually do that. Okay, so the question I get a lot, okay, it's pretty, I can update my profile, I can make it all beautiful, but what about posting content on LinkedIn? Like, I don't want to spend hours and hours trying to think of like unique ideas or angles and creating and then editing and then publishing this content. So how do I actually do that? Well, you're in luck. So you don't actually have to do that. Again, if you want to do it, 100% go for it. I mean, that's definitely like that next advanced level. And I highly encourage it, but you don't have to do that. I have actually not done that. That's one of my goals for this year is to actually do it. But in the past, for so many years, I actually haven't done any of that. If you wanted to, there is a great course by Justin Welsh called the operating-system.co, where he actually has a huge framework that he's created in terms of how to actually create this really great content. So if that's one of your goals for this year, and you're kind of committed to creating great original content, 100%, you should, focus on that, and that's a win, but you don't have to start there. So this is where I started. Basically, I tried to figure out how to leverage other people's content, or how I could leverage their insights to create content, right? So one easy win that I had was just interviewing clients or thought leaders. So they actually are the ones who provide content. So something as simple as, so for example, going back to my CFO, my first job in software sales, I was talking to CFOs and VPs of finance, and I figured, okay, I don't know everything about their world, but I know that, there's some really fantastic, really fantastic consultants or kind of finance thought leaders. What if I ask them to interview them and from there create content, and now I can actually share that? So that's exactly what I did. I actually interviewed a financial consultant and asked a couple of questions, got her feedback on like, hey, do these questions make sense? I recorded the session using SoundCloud, and you can even use like a Zoom webinar to record it. And now I had content. So the great thing is that she was able to share that content with her audience. And then I was able to share that content with my CFOs and my VPs of finance. And you can kind of think about like where that positioning and how that helps with trust and credibility, because it's like, oh, wow, like this individual actually is really invested in, my industry or my space. And my vertical, they're actually connecting and interviewing and associated, with other thought leaders in the space. So that's a little hack you can do, very simple. You can, again, record it on a Zoom call. You can record it via SoundCloud, and basically just a call. It becomes almost like a podcast. And then you can even have that transcribed and then create that into like a LinkedIn post if you wanted to. Another really easy hack here is share content on LinkedIn that you find helpful and insightful. So as you're going through the LinkedIn feed, if you're finding an article or a piece of content or an upcoming webinar, for example, that you're like, oh, wow, this is actually really insightful, and bonus points, I know this would be insightful for my target sales audience, share that content, right? Because now you're the person who is that connector. You're connecting and providing value, and helping your target audience see some great content that could be really helpful for them. Another little hack that I've done that's worked really well is share content that your clients have posted. So for example, here, I'll just actually show you an example of what I did here on LinkedIn. So this is really, really simple, and not enough people do it. So if we go to my activity, you'll say I don't have a lot, but what I do have here is, let me just scroll. Where is Scott? So Scott was one of my clients that I sold to a couple of years ago. We're connected on LinkedIn and still stay in touch. And what I noticed when I was on my feed one day was that Scott was, let me actually just go back over here, my post. So what I actually noticed was Scott was hiring for a role on his team. So what I did was I just shared his content on LinkedIn. And, I'm hoping to kind of help and with my network kind of get this out there. But, you can see it's just a nice little way to have that soft connect, with your target audience. So he's one of my clients, but even anybody that you are hoping to work with, this is a great little thing. Start sharing their content, engage with their content. Comment on their content. This is such a very, very simple and small thing to do. But now Scott is obviously going to be notified that I am sharing his content, and that definitely helps for some bonus points. Okay, so, and again, it can be anything, right? So in that case, Scott was promoting a job. If your dream account or client, they're sharing upcoming webinars they're hosting or events or a blog post, like share that content, engage with it as well. Another thing too, again, engaging in threads, right? Very simple, leave a comment. You don't have to like do this across, 100 posts a day, but pick 2 or 3 posts that you see on LinkedIn and you're like, oh, this is really interesting. I want to engage, or in posts that your target audience is reading and engaging with, right? So leave a helpful comment, and then even if you want to get, really, really proactive, you can actually ask whoever the original poster was, if you can interview them, right? Say, hey, I love this post that you shared. It looks like it's getting a lot of engagement. That's awesome. I'm looking for people to interview about topic X. Since you were the original poster, I would love to get your thoughts on this. Would you be open to, a 10-minute little session, and just want to ask you some questions? Again, you now are connected to someone who's obviously creating great content, and you're leveraging their insights to create your own content. So hopefully that's helpful, but yes, 100%, you do not have to, spend hours and hours creating your own content to like have a brand. Like leverage as a starting point, leverage the content that's already out there and by people who've already either created great content or they have a lot of insights that they've collected over the years of their experiences that you can share as well. Okay, the second tool that I want folks to learn about is Bravado. So bravado.co, it's a wonderful sales community. And in that community, there's a forum, so you can engage with other sales professionals at different levels of their career. They talk about all topics, but the one functionality that I really want you to zone in on is the seller portfolios. So the seller portfolio is basically the free feature at Bravado. And really what it allows you to do and create your brand in sales is kind of craft this wall of fame, right? So you can actually have client logos, testimonials, and awards listed on that page. The really nice thing with this one, people ask me why LinkedIn and Bravado? Can I just use LinkedIn to do that? With LinkedIn, it's really great with like expanding your network and making those connections, but to quickly highlight, especially on a sales perspective, what you have done, who you have worked with, and what clients are saying about you. So again, presenting and pulling in, those connections, it's kind of hard to do. So Bravado allows you to do that very, very quickly. And that's why I really love it. It does require work and consistency, but this is really, really key and was honestly an inflection point for me, especially creating like a sales brand. So I'm going to show you what it looks like so you can kind of go through. It's really easy. So this is what the portfolio basically looks like. So you'd be able to get one, again, have your picture, your name. They even have like a little call to action there as well. You have like a little blurb about yourself. And again, the really nice thing that I like that you can do here that you can't really do on LinkedIn, you can actually highlight all the brands and the different clients that you've worked with very easily. So think about this as like, a potential client landing on this experience and being like, oh, okay, this is impressive. Like, oh, you've worked with other energy companies. Hey, I'm an energy company too. So what we're trying to do is just plant those little seeds of trust and credibility and commonality as well. Also in their portfolio, you can have testimonials, right? So you want to make sure your top 2 are your most powerful ones, but you can actually have testimonials here. These are all pulled in via LinkedIn, or they even have an option of you sending a link through Bravado, and then you can actually leave, your clients can leave a testimonial directly on the page without having to sign in on LinkedIn, which works really well. Sales experience, you can have that all listed here too, and then also your work history. But really with the portfolio, what I found is the most powerful is your logos of clients that you've worked with, and then also testimonials too, because honestly, nothing converts better than social proof. Okay. And then also what we can do, which is really, really cool with the Bravado seller portfolio, is we can actually embed this link in your outgoing email campaigns. So this is really, really powerful, especially in any cold email campaigns, perhaps that you're doing where you are prospecting into a whole new industry or a client that you haven't really engaged with. It works really, really well. So what that looks like is, for example, I have a really simple signature, but I have my LinkedIn, of course, like most folks too, but I also have this little call to action that's within my signature. So as people actually click through, they are sent to my profile. And it's really, really neat to kind of check the clicks. But this is definitely a hotspot for clicks, because imagine getting this email, as that CFO, and I might be curious to be like, I wonder what people are saying, right? Or who else they've kind of worked with. And when they see this, again, it just builds that trust and credibility. Awesome. Okay. So hopefully that's some interesting little insights there. But again, what you're doing is, leveraging your connections, your clients, people that you've worked with, your colleagues, to really kind of help build your personal brand, right? Those 2 tools are great places to start. And if you really want to kick it up a notch, this is also a really fantastic idea that not enough people do, but it's really, really effective. So what you can actually do is start thinking about where your target audience hangs out. Okay, so think about like any kind of associations, events, conferences, who's hosting even like LinkedIn events, or who's hosting webinars, things like that. And what you want to do, and what we're trying to do, the end goal is credibility by connection, right? So we want to align ourselves with people who already have built up a massive audience with your ideal dream clients. So this works really, really well. So think about, for example, Sales Hacker, right, is one that I started connecting with. And even just by liking, engaging, and sharing their content on LinkedIn, right, get to kind of know them. And then from there, reach out and proactively ask how you can help with creating content for that audience. So again, you can say, hey, I've interviewed, this CFO, I think it might be helpful information. There's some great, thought leadership in there. How can I help? Or would you be open to having this on your blog or website, right? Another pro tip here is that when you actually do engage with that or engage and kind of make that ask, to send an email or LinkedIn message. And instead of just saying like, hey, can I create content for your community, or upcoming events, actually list out like 3 topics that you can contribute. So you can say like, hey, I can write or make a video or interview on these 3 topics. Which one would appeal most to your audience? So that's a very proactive and a great way to get a yes versus, well, what kind of content can you create? And think about ways of how else you can get involved with their community, right? Because, again, it's the credibility, the trust, and the access by connection, right? So we want to think about, okay, if I can, help with an event or sharing a webinar or creating content, right? What can I do that will actually help their community? And maybe even talk to these people who run these communities and ask them, like, what's top of mind for them? What are they focused on for 2022? And see how you can help, because again, that's good karma that will 100% come back your way. Okay, so we have about 15 minutes left. I want to make sure I see some questions popping up as well. So I want to make sure we have more than enough time to answer questions. But when it comes to your personal brand, will it take time? 100% yes. Effort, that consistency, actually scheduling, maybe time blocking time in your calendar to make this happen. It requires all of that. It's not an overnight success, but will it work? 100%. 100% it will work. Will it pay off? 100%. Whether that payoff will be in, connecting with your dream client, a dream role, being asked to be on webinars or a podcast, which, feels really amazing and very humbling. But you just don't know what kind of doors your personal brand will open as well. So if you make the effort, it's a great time to make that commitment with the start of a new year. I think you'll be very surprised at some of the doors that hopefully some of these strategies will open up for you. Okay, that's it. It's a lot of talking. Again, we can go like really, really deep into personal branding and all like really, beginner strategies, advanced strategies. But what I wanted to do for today, and the one takeaway that I hope you have from this webinar, is that like 100%, make this intentional and commit to, even just walking off this webinar and doing one thing, whether it's I'm going to update my profile picture and make sure I'm smiling, or I'm going to go into Canva, I'm going to customize my LinkedIn banner, or I'm going to go ask my 3 last clients if they can leave me a recommendation on LinkedIn and ask them like why they actually enjoyed working with me. Make that commitment to yourself, and I hope it leads to many amazing doors opening for you as well.
Thank you so much, Preeti. That was amazing input, and definitely a few things that I've never thought about. For example, your idea with Canva and that very precious real estate that I think many of us have just been wasting for years. So that's going to be my takeaway, to work on that. Thank you so much for all your tips. So thank you so much for actually providing good value today, Preeti. This was really, really awesome. And thank you so much for, you we're basically cherry on top of Sales Academy.
Oh,
So
I'm so glad
yeah,
to hear that. That is awesome.
This is it. This was our final session today. So thank you for everyone who's spent the past, I think, 3.5 months with us at this point. Again, a final ask, please complete our feedback survey to help us shape future programming. I just dropped the link, and we're also already working on programming for the rest of this year. So you can learn more about that and sign up at the link that I just dropped in the chat. Thank you for joining, everyone. Thank you for taking the time, Priti.
Yeah, and Stephanie, if I can just add one more thing, I just want to say thank you so much. And this has been like such a great series that your team has organized, like just amazing things. I joined them as well. So I know the great content that was shared. So hopefully like everyone who's joined the call today and the previous calls, they really got a lot of value out of it. I've already seen on LinkedIn some people connecting with me. So thank you so much. I'm going to add one little extra cherry on top is that if anybody connects with me on LinkedIn and share with me one thing that you did from today's webinar, what I will do, I'll actually personally go through your LinkedIn profile and give you some tips and tricks on what you can do to optimize. So, so yeah, I'll do that for the first like 2 people who reach out and share like, hey, Priti, it's my one takeaway, and this is what I actually actioned. Because I know a lot of times we come with good intentions on these webinars, and then life happens, work happens, right? And we get busy. But yeah, hopefully that's an incentive for your audience as well to actually just do one thing, share it with me on LinkedIn, and then I will provide you with a little bit of a audit on your profile, if you will.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, thank you everyone for being here today, and have a great rest of your day. See you soon on Zoom, hopefully. Bye.
Amazing. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, everybody.